With the sun just beginning to break through the horizon over the stunning Montana mountains, my husband David and I embarked on our adventure towards the lake we had planned to make camp at, a day's hike away. While David and I have gone on numerous hikes before, none have delved as deeply into the wilderness as this one. Much of our journey took us off the beaten path, highlighting the necessity of a compass and map. With each step, we distance ourselves from the familiar, venturing further into the uncharted depths of the forest. The day's trek undoubtedly presented its struggles and challenges, which really tested my endurance. However, the breathtaking scene that awaited us upon reaching our destination, a tranquil lake cradled by a natural amphitheater of trees, assured us of the serenity we had been seeking. The rest of the evening drifted by in peaceful ease as we set up our tent and gathered around the campfire, cooking our evening meal and sharing tales of our hike and the surrounding beauty. The sunset painted the sky, leaving us with its lingering impact. In the last fleeting moments before the sun dipped below the mountainous horizon across the lake, David, scanning the area with binoculars, caught sight of something in the distance. "Lisa, come take a look at this," he exclaimed, passing me the binoculars and indicating where to look. And there, as I refocused the lenses, across the water stood a man, observing us through his own set of binoculars. It appeared he was carrying a rifle. "Do you think he's out there by himself?" I pondered aloud, breaking the silence as I glanced at David. "What do you mean?" he inquired. "The man across the lake," I clarified. As I responded, he reached for the binoculars. He then explained that he hadn't spotted a person, but instead a gathering of deer he thought might interest me. I attempted to indicate the tree line where I had seen the figure, but he was no longer visible. The final moments of the evening slipped away rapidly, making it impossible to try to spot anything across the lake anymore. As odd as it was spotting someone just standing there gazing at us, we figured it was only another hiker, relishing the peaceful solitude of the secluded lake. Gradually, the stars began to emerge one by one, dotting the sky above. Amidst the ongoing sounds of nocturnal creatures and the crackling campfire, a new addition emerged: the distinct calls of coyotes. While their presence always made me a bit uneasy, I had grown more familiar with their howls over time. If there were any genuine dangers lurking in these parts, it would be the native brown and black bears. In the process of arranging the area before sleep, my attention was drawn to the sound of branches breaking not far off. The distinct sound suggested movement nearby. I couldn't shake off the sense of unease, particularly since I found myself a little way from the campfire, enveloped in darkness while hanging our bags. The noises grew louder, yet attempting to discern their source in the darkness proved silly, until I clicked on the flashlight I had in hand. I illuminated the obscurity of the woods, silently praying not to encounter anything dangerous. "Hello?" I called out, the words escaping me instinctively, but they echoed back only with silence, as the flashlight cast ghostly shadows among the trees. "Everything all right?" David asked as I rejoined him. I reassured him that everything was fine, though I admitted feeling a bit spooked from the noises. With that, we retreated into the tent, zipping it shut, settling into our sleeping bags, and preparing for rest. Just as I began to drift off, I was startled awake by the familiar sounds of snapping twigs and branches nearby, signaling movement once more outside. Initially hesitant to disturb David, I waited for a moment, but as the noises grew louder, I shook him awake. As he woke up, I informed him of the noises I had heard outside. Pausing to listen, we found the night silent once more. David convinced it was probably some passing animals. Preferring not to overreact, I acknowledged that such sounds are common in the wilderness at night. As I lay awake, lost in my thoughts, the silence was shattered, not by only another branch cracking, but also by the shadow outline on the thin yellow nylon of our tent, cast by the faint glow of the fire outside. Once more, I woke up David, motioning towards the source of the noise. As we watched the figure pass by our tent, It became evident from the distinct sound of footsteps and the silhouette against the tense fabric that it was a person. David and I exchanged terrified looks, our hearts pounding with fear, as we remained silently hoping the intruder would move along. Focused intently on the shifting shadow, I could make out a definite outline of an axe. My eyes widened in horror as David glanced at me, placing his finger over his lips in a silent plea to maintain our silence. The mere thought of that axe crunching through me filled me with an overwhelming terror, paralyzing me as I sat motionless, squeezing my eyes shut in a desperate attempt to ward off the fear. All I could do was silently plead for the man to pass by without a problem. Meanwhile, David carefully and quietly retrieved a can of bear spray, recognizing it as our best line of defense in that moment. Unfamiliar with how to use the bear spray, as we have never carried it prior to this trip, we were uncertain of its effectiveness. Then, coincidentally, new sounds suddenly emerged nearby, this time resembling the deep moan of a bear. Surprisingly, in that moment, the realization that it might be a bear brought tremendous relief, as it appeared to startle the man lurking outside the tent. As the shadow gradually faded away with the departing footsteps, David and I remained silent, anticipating the possibility of another visitor. We made our way out of our sleeping bags as we continued to intently listen. Thankfully, the only unsettling noises we heard for the next several minutes or so were the distant calls of coyotes. Emerging cautiously from the tent, David gripped the bear spray tightly as we swept the flashlights across the surroundings, searching for any signs of danger, yet finding only the engulfing darkness of the forest. I joined him outside, staying nearby to offer support. Still shaken with fear, I couldn't fathom how I would manage to sleep for the rest of the night, knowing that a dangerous man and perhaps a bear were nearby. "Do you hear that?" David's voice broke through my thoughts, increasing my already heightened anxiety. As I strained to listen, I discerned the sound of whistling, coupled with the soft approach of footsteps once more. Moments later, after David and I had both concealed ourselves behind the tent, the man began to emerge, barely illuminated by the fire we had recently tended to. "I ain't here to cause no harm," we heard in a rugged backwoods accent. As the figure drew near, I identified an older man holding a rifle. It was no doubt the same individual I had seen across the lake earlier. "What's your business here?" David demanded, his voice tinged with anger, as the old man casually strolled towards the camp. His gaze shifted between David and me, before returning to David. "Ain't looking for trouble, but young Bucksy might be," he replied. "You folks know where you're at?" With apprehension, we exchanged words with the old man. He recounted the tale of young Bucksy, known for his aggressive behavior amongst the others residing in the hills. Rumors suggested he had brutally slaughtered a group of hikers in this area and tossed their remains in the lake just a few years back. Shivers were crawling up my spine, and I looked around the dark surroundings as the old man continued his story, his face illuminated by the campfire's glow. He indicated that young Bucksy resided in a shack on our side of the lake. Surprised when seeing us, he felt compelled to offer us a warning. That was the tipping point for me, and David and I quickly reached an agreement. We needed to depart immediately to avoid the potential confrontation with young Bucksy. Expressing our gratitude to the old man, we watched just how ominously he had entered camp. He vanished back into the shadows, leaving us with nothing more to say except another warning. Leaving our tent behind, we focused on making a steady exit, motivated by the urgency to distance ourselves from young Bucksy. Despite our fatigue, the surge of adrenaline fueled our confidence in navigating the hike back in the darkness. After all, it seemed a lesser risk than spending the night next to a potential menacing murderer. Carefully, we retraced our steps along the familiar route, relying on our accumulated knowledge to guide us. At many times, it seemed as though we were being followed, signs marked by the continued strange noises following us, making any rest pass quickly. The sensation of being watched the entire time never calmed. I couldn't shake the distinct impression that, on several occasions, I heard the chilling sound of an axe striking a tree, echoing its contact throughout the dark, quiet forest, a terrifying realization of him attempting to drive us away. Despite the night being long and restless, a long period of time elapsed without any discernible noises or sights. Progressing under the radiance of the bright moon, we continued our hike through the gradually thinning forest until sheer exhaustion took its toll, forcing us to find rest. Though with only best and adventurous intentions, our quest for solitude had evolved into a stark reminder on the unpredictability of the wild. Far beyond the beaten paths, there exist forces that typically dwell only in our deepest nightmares. The deep night beyond my window was alive with the sounds of fierce howling winds and heavy rain when my father woke me up. "Connor, wake up. We have to leave right now." His voice, usually calm and steady, carried urgency that snapped me awake. I squinted, attempting to decipher the flickering shadows across my walls, briefly revealed by lightning flashes. For a moment, I was lost, my mind hovering between the fading echoes of a dream and the dire warning conveyed by my dad's tone. Suddenly, a sound, louder than any thunderclap, pierced the air, and everything clicked. Tornado. The word wasn't spoken, but it hung in the air, heavy with the fear it invoked. I flung the blankets aside and leaped from my bed, feeling a rush of adrenaline. Dad was already at my closet, hurriedly packing a backpack with clothes and essential gear. "Here, put these on. Hurry," he said, flinging a jacket and shoes my direction. "We're heading to the storm shelter." On the brink of leaving my room, I peeked through the window, curious yet apprehensive. What I saw chilled me to the core. A looming silhouette of a giant tornado was visible in the near distance, starkly outlined by the relentless lightning. Fear widened my eyes, yet, instinctively, I refocused on what mattered most. Once outside my room, the entire house felt as though it had come to life, with its framework shuddering and whimpering in response to the wind's fierce blows. In the kitchen, there was my mom, visibly pale yet unflinching, hastily securing water and quickly grabbing some non-perishable food. Ellie, my little sister, was there too, with her favorite rabbit-stuffed animal in arms, her gaze filled with unmistakable fear. "We're going to be fine," I said, perhaps more to steady myself than to reassure her. We rushed through the house, a tight-knit group driven by urgency, and exited through the rear door. It was outside that the full intensity of the storm struck me, a physical force that made each step a battle. Rain assaulted us with the sharpness of needles. The wind screamed in my ears, a relentless enemy trying to push us back. Another flash of lightning revealed the towering tornado once more, now ominously closer than before. I tightened my hold on Ellie's hand, the imminent danger becoming all too real and alarmingly close. The safety of our backyard's underground concrete shelter felt an impossible distance away. Flashes of lightning continued to sporadically light up the night, briefly exposing the turmoil around us. Trees bent like bowstrings, and debris flew past, a dangerous ballet of destruction. Dad led, a steadfast figure against the storm, followed by Mom, then Ellie, with me in the back, making sure no one was left behind. We reached the shelter, the door heavy against the wind as Dad struggled to open it. Inside, it was dark and cramped, but it was our haven from the storm's fury. The door slammed closed, and the deafening sound of the tornado surrounded us, resembling the relentless rumble of a passing freight train, the sound pulsing through our bodies. I forced close my eyes. Ellie let out soft cries, while Mom held her tight, offering gentle words of solace. Dad leaned against the door, a wordless watchman, In the pitch black of the shelter, the passage of time became blurred. The relentless wrath of the storm outside was a harsh reminder of nature's overwhelming power. Thoughts of what might become of our home and the surrounding area lingered, leaving me to ponder the aftermath once the morning arrived. Fear was a constant companion, yet it was matched by a deep-seated determination. Together, we faced the ordeal, ready to withstand whatever came our way. Gradually, the storm's roar slowly subsided, and tension eased with the tornado's exit. Silence took over, an awkward stillness after such chaos. Dad cautiously cracked open the door, and we stepped into a dramatically changed reality. Though the darkness of the night still swept the land, the now softer flashes of lightning continued illuminating the scene of destruction. Our home was battered and suffered damage, but for the most part, remained upright, a symbol of endurance. Concerned about the integrity of our home and it being too late to assess the damages, we chose to remain in the shelter for the rest of the night, postponing our return until morning. That was probably the longest night of my life, as all I could do was think about the violent storm. As we tackled the daunting task of rebuilding, I recognized the profound impact the storm had on us. It exposed the fortitude of my family, our ability to encounter the unknown with courage, and the importance of maintaining hope. The tornado, though ferocious in its arrival, ultimately contributed to an unexpected treasure, a strengthened bond, shaped in the storm's fury. One summer night, just a few weeks after high school graduation, me and a few of my closest friends were hanging out outside a house party discussing our plans for the night. My best friend, Andrew, suggested we go hit up a new X-Men movie, as the party we were at wasn't really our scene and everyone was already pretty wasted. Megan, the girl I was dating at the time, had a far better idea for the night. She mentioned knowing about an entrance to some large caves within short driving distance. She continued to say she'd been there once before a while back, but didn't go very far inside. Filled with a mix of nerves and excitement, we decided to set out. The entrance where we parked our car near was quite beautiful at night. Above us were highways and train bridges that crossed the Mississippi River, leading into downtown St. Paul. The misty evening added an eerie allure to the twinkling lights of the buildings, casting an ominous sense of beauty. Armed with flashlights, the four of us entered the cave system. As our beams pierced the darkness, we came upon what seemed like a mess of highway debris. Iron rebar protruded here and there, emphasizing the dangerous nature of the place, urging us to tread cautiously. All our voices we made echoed through the pitch-black caverns. Andrew shouted out loudly to let out some excited energy, but Lauren, Andrew's girlfriend, told him to stop and that it freaked her out. I couldn't deny the creepiness of it. The eerie silence and pitch-black darkness were unlike anything I'd ever encountered before. Without our flashlights, we would be pretty screwed. Having cautiously traversed the large pieces of fractured roadway, we found ourselves in a comparatively small cave corridor, dwarfed in size compared to the immense chamber we had initially entered. While progressing through the seemingly endless dark passage, small open chambers would emerge to the sides, causing us to check them out and evoking a reoccurring creepy thought. What if someone or something lingered within, anticipating discovery by the shine of our lights? Among the chambers, one stood apart. It featured a steep staircase equipped with a climbing rope, ascending to an abyssal darkness. It's the farthest Megan said she had ventured, and her friend told her it was called Devil's Staircase. Despite its evident danger, shortly after mustering our courage, Andrew and I opted to explore it while the girls remained behind. Scaling the climb was nerve-wracking, to say the least. Upon reaching the summit, I was met with yet another lengthy, dark hallway, though narrower and significantly more cramped. After briefly investigating the passage, discovering it led to a point where crawling was required, we descended back to Megan and Lauren. As I reached for the rope to begin my descent, faint sounds emanated from the narrow passage. Struggling to discern amidst Andrew's laughter and the girls' shouts, I barely caught the distant noises echoing from within. However, dismissing it as possibly anything, I proceeded with my journey back down. Upon reuniting with the girls, their expressions betrayed genuine fear, as if they had encountered a ghost. Lauren recounted spotting a figure wearing a peculiar mask before it vanished into the depths of the caves while we were climbing. Megan mentioned hearing something but hadn't seen the person. Despite Megan and Lauren's inclination to turn back, Andrew and I were fueled by curiosity and the allure of an eerie exploration. We decided to continue ahead, persuading the girls that there was nothing to fear. A few minutes further down the dark corridor, we noticed a faint light illuminating a wall ahead, marking the beginning of a left turn. Accompanying this, a subtle aroma of smoke began to fill the air as we approached the end of the hallway. "I have a bad feeling about this, guys," Megan exclaimed as we neared the bend. We decided to extinguish our flashlights to avoid detection. Silently, we approached the corner, the flickering glow ahead still illuminating the passage. As we rounded the corner cautiously, we were met with the sight of a spacious cavern bathed in firelight, occupied by at least a dozen individuals adorned in robes and creepy masks. Their attention snapped to us, raising their hand to point in our direction, while all chanting some howl that gradually got louder and deeper. I stood frozen in shock, taking in the chilling scene before me. Before them lay a sacrificial animal atop an altar, with the demonic symbol etched into the floor lined with candles. "Oh, F this," Andrew exclaimed, urging us to make a swift exit. Just before tearing my eyes away, whether due to fear or some other force, I glimpsed into the deepest shadows at the back of the passage. In an instant, a portion of the wall shattered with a menacing growl, revealing two ominous red eyes fixed upon me, while the robed figures persisted in their chanting and directed their focus towards me. The crimson eyes held me in a trance-like state as the creature slowly manifested from the shadows, its eerie howl resonating through the cavern's massive open chamber. "Come on, Blake," Megan cried out, breaking my gaze. Regaining my senses, I hastily fled down the hall alongside Megan, eventually catching up to Andrew and Lauren as the sounds gradually faded into the distance. Following a few minutes of frantic running through the cavernous passageways, we finally arrived back at the expansive chamber littered with remnants of shattered highway, where a faint glimmer of light broke through the darkness, revealing our exit. Emerging onto the street where our car was parked, we took a moment to collect ourselves, eagerly relaying our accounts of the unsettling experience. But when I described the ghastly figure I had seen emerging from the darkened void, the others doubted my story, thinking I was just BSing them. Yet I couldn't shake the certainty that what I had witnessed was otherworldly and profoundly disturbing. We never dared to venture back into those caves, and within a few years, the entrances were closed off following several tragic deaths, though I heard that there are still some secret accessible entrances. To this day, I ponder over the disturbing event we witnessed. The individuals we encountered were evidently involved in something profoundly sinister, and whether the entity I saw was physically real or a creation of my imagination, The memory of those creepy red eyes continues to haunt me. Throughout my life, I had yearned to experience the serene beauty of a tropical paradise, like the places you see in breathtaking images, often depicted in screensavers and calendar pages. In the winter of 2018, I finally had the chance to make that dream come true. Little did I know that a shadow would be cast over that vacation, still haunting my memory today. Upon our arrival at Koh Samui Island in Thailand, we were greeted with a sense of awe. The journey from the US had been quite hectic, with long flights and a few layovers along the way. However, the sight of those pristine white waves crashing beneath the brilliant Thai sun made every bit of the effort worthwhile. Around midday, the beaches were alive with energy of tourists relishing their vacation. Local vendors roamed the sandy stretches, peddling various treats including coconut milk, ice cream, fresh fruit juices, and one of my personal favorites, grilled corn on the cob. My wife Dawn and I found a cozy spot nestled in the shade of some palm trees, where we diligently applied SPF before laying out towels on a sun-drenched patch of sand to bask in its warmth. Following the delightful indulgence of one of the delicious grilled corns, I decided it was time to plunge into the water for a refreshing swim. Dawn, not particularly fond of swimming, especially in oceans with crashing waves, opted this time to stay behind and catch up on her tan. Meanwhile, I ventured towards the shore, taking measured steps into the deeper waters, gradually adjusting to the coolness of the ocean. The crashing waves made me feel like a child again, filled with excitement with each splash. I'd glance back at Dawn, waving my arms eagerly until she noticed and waved back. Swimming around me, others waited in anticipation for the next wave to catch. Though I am from the Midwest United States and far from any coast, my confidence in swimming stemmed from years of dedicated lessons throughout elementary and middle school. My grandfather also often let me access a large pool at our local high school that he was responsible for maintaining. The waves that day were notably large, unlike anything I had experienced on previous coastal outings. I ventured onward until the ocean floor vanished beneath me, leaving me to tread water. Each time a passing wave came, I dove into it, trying not to let it carry me back towards the shore as I wanted to go out a little farther. Also, I noticed that if I could get a little further out, I could avoid the crash of the wave. Despite being farther out in the water, I kept glancing back at Dawn, hoping to catch a glimpse of her still sitting, engrossed in her book, basking in the sun. Although it was more challenging at this distance, I noticed her looking in my direction, one hand shielding her eyes and the other waving. Noticing a trio of guys alongside me in the deep waters, I couldn't help but feel a tad surprised at how far out we were compared to the majority much closer to the shore. Despite this realization, I didn't dwell on it much, contemplating a return to shallower depths, after savoring the vastness of the open water for a while. While the waves weren't crashing as often, their substantial elevation remained a formidable force. Within seconds, I'd find myself lifted several feet above sea level, granting me a sweeping perspective, only to swiftly descend, surrounded once again by towering waves. As I glanced towards the shore, a sense of worry crept over me as I realized just how far out I had ventured. Despite the proximity of the three other guys, one of them appeared to be in distress. Initially, I mistook his shouts for excitement, but upon closer observation, it became clear he was frantically signaling for help, his arms flailing in desperation. As his companions attempted to reach him, the daunting size of the waves and the relentless current made any progress seem futile, quickly draining their energy. Despite the concerning sight of the struggling man and the huge waves, I remained strong and self-assured. Opting to conserve energy, I chose to float on my back, gradually maneuvering towards his direction. With each passing moment in the deep waters, the man's panic surged, underscoring the gravity of the situation. Despite one of his friends drawing closer to him, I remained at a distance, carried along by the unyielding force of the rip current. Understanding the increasing peril and the risk of exhaustion, I made the tough decision to commence my journey back to the shore. Despite the sunny skies, the scene took on a somber tone, as if the brightness of the day had been swallowed by a sudden darkness. Amidst the panic, an eerie sense of gloom seemed to shroud the waters, dimming its previous blue radiance. As I persisted in floating on my back and making gradual progress towards the shore, I kept a watchful eye on the struggling man and his nearby friend. With each passing moment, the gap between them closed rapidly. However, the distressed man appeared to have ceased all movement, his head now gently bobbing underwater, suggesting a state of unconsciousness. "Do you need help?" I yelled out as they approached. The assisting friend confirmed with a brief, "Please," his efforts focused on keeping the unconscious man afloat. I couldn't help but notice the unsettling sight. The man's eyes remained wide open, bloodshot, and fixated straight ahead. We exerted our utmost efforts to keep the man's head above water, but the task was challenging with the relentless crashing waves. Supporting the seemingly lifeless body of the drowned man was deeply disturbing, serving as a stark reminder of how swiftly one's fate could change. Fortunately, we were gradually approaching the shore, drawing closer to the other swimmers. By this point, I was feeling quite exhausted, eagerly anticipating the sensation of solid ground beneath my feet. With continued paddling and kicking, I finally felt the soft sand brushing against my feet. Completing the journey with the man in tow became notably easier, as we could now feel the ocean floor beneath us. Nearby swimmers had begun to take notice of the situation, hastening over to lend their aid as we approached the shore. Meanwhile, the two other companions of the man I assisted were also making their way back from deeper waters. We carefully placed the motionless man on the sand. His bloodshot eyes remained open and fixed ahead. His complexion was drained of color, his stillness suggesting an absence of life. I stood frozen for a moment, struggling to catch my breath and process the gravity of the scene unfolding before me. The friend who aided in bringing him ashore promptly initiated CPR efforts. Within moments, a crowd began to form, with several individuals stepping forward to lend assistance. Despite the collective efforts, the man lay there motionless, his gaze fixed upwards towards the sky. During the turmoil, I decided to approach Dawn, who was still laying down nearby, looking a bit puzzled by the growing crowd. I took a moment to explain the situation to her, and she was visibly shocked upon learning what had transpired. Together, we stood by, watching the crowd attentively, hopeful for any signs of the man's recovery. Sadly, despite the tireless attempts by the medical professionals who quickly came to assist, the man showed no signs of life, confirming he was dead. With the surrounding crowd still visibly shaken, I felt a strong urge to leave, wanting to distance myself from the grim scene. All I desired was to take a shower and continue with the rest of the evening, hoping to erase the memory of the ordeal and find some semblance of peace. The sight of the vast ocean and its crashing waves serves as a constant reminder of its formidable power, a sombering reminder of how quickly they can turn from beauty to peril, potentially leading to one's demise.